Have you ever closed up shop at night? Alone. So late that silence feels unnatural? Not peaceful, not calm, but wrong? Millerton Grocery was a dying little store in a dying little town. One of those rural places where the shelves are mostly dust and expired corn, and your footsteps echo even when you're not moving. It was the kind of place where the only regulars were retirees and chain-smoking night shifters who came in for scratch-offs and stale coffee. And it was where Marcus took a part-time job after moving to town for school. Just a few shifts a week. Nothing stressful. Clock in, tidy shelves, run the register for the rare late-night wanderer, and lock up. He didn't believe in ghost stories. Not yet. It was a Friday in late October, and Marcus had been covering the closing shift alone. Sandy, the other cashier, had called in sick, and honestly, Marcus didn't mind. The store closed at midnight, and he could use the quiet to finish his psych reading between customers. It was dead that night. Not a single customer after 10 o'clock. By 11:45, Marcus had already cleaned the bathrooms, straightened the candy aisle, and counted down the till. He was standing by the front doors with his backpack on when he heard it. A soft ding. The sound of the entrance chime. He froze. The automatic doors hadn't opened. They were locked, and he was sure of it. He always locked them at 11:50 sharp. Just muscle memory, but the chime still echoed in the air. He looked over his shoulder. Nothing. He scanned the floor from the front, sweeping across the registers and deli section. Still nothing. A quiet, empty store bathed in flickering fluorescent light. Then another ding. From aisle 6. That was the pet food aisle. A motion sensor sat right above it, an old, chirping one that triggered if someone walked under it. Marcus walked around the counter, still clutching his keys, and called out, "Hello? We're closed." Silence. Just the gentle hum of the refrigerator units and the flickering buzz from the lights. He crept to aisle 6 and peeked down. Empty. He turned to walk back, then noticed something strange. There were dog food bags scattered on the floor. 3 of them, torn open. Marcus frowned. He knew they hadn't been there earlier. He would have seen that while zoning the aisles. And no one had been in the store since before 10. He stepped toward them and crouched down. The kibble was fresh, still clinging to a static charge. Then he heard it, the creak of wheels. From behind. He turned around fast, expecting to see a shopping cart. Nothing. Just the end of the aisle, and the cold, stale air that felt heavier now. Marcus stood up and backed away slowly, returning to the register. Maybe a prank? A coworker hiding to mess with him? He reached for the landline to call the manager when the lights went out. All at once. Not flickering, not buzzing, just total darkness, silence. And then footsteps, not sneakers, not boots, bare feet, slapping softly against the linoleum floor. Slap, slap, slap. Coming from the back room. Marcus whispered to himself, "Hell no," and grabbed his phone for a flashlight. He turned on the beam and pointed it at the door leading to the stockroom. Still closed, but those footsteps kept coming, until they stopped. Right. The door. He took one cautious step backward. Then the door handle twitched. Just a flick, as if someone had brushed it from the other side. Then again. Harder this time. Marcus didn't breathe. The store had no basement. No upstairs. No side exits other than the emergency doors, and they'd screech loud enough to wake the dead. So either someone was hiding back there, or something else was. With one shaky finger, Marcus called his manager, Bob. Voicemail. He whispered, "Okay, screw this," and turned toward the front exit, when every register scanner beeped in unison. Beep, 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 beep. All 6.
Rapid, shrill, deafening.
Like invisible hands were ringing up phantom items. Then, silence again. He sprinted to the front door, jammed his key into the lock, yanked it open, and ran into the night. Didn't even clock out. Didn't lock up. Just ran. Marcus never returned. He called Bob the next morning and quit over the phone. Said the store gave him a bad feeling. Didn't mention the footsteps, the beeps, the dark, just that he wouldn't be back. What he didn't know was this. A year before Marcus took the job, an employee named Adam had collapsed during a closing shift. Massive heart attack. Right there on the stockroom floor. He died alone, in the dark. And the next morning, when the opener arrived, the register scanners were all beeping. The pet food aisle was trashed, and the store's motion sensors had gone off all night. Security footage, deleted, corrupted. No one ever fixed it. Some places don't close, even when the lights go out. Some workers never really clock out. And if you ever find yourself standing in a too-quiet store, staring into a motionless aisle, listen. If you hear footsteps from the back room, leave. Don't check. Don't call out. Just leave. Some buildings feel like they remember too much. Every creak of a stair, every flicker of a light, every unexplained cold patch. It's as if the walls are whispering things they were never supposed to hear. Jasmine never believed in that kind of thing. She was logical, analytical, fresh out of college and proud to land her first real job as an assistant records clerk at a mid-sized law firm in downtown St. Paul. The kind of place with wood-paneled elevators, real brass nameplates, and file cabinets older than she was. But the real problem wasn't the paperwork. It was the basement. The first time she saw it, Jasmine thought it was a joke. Records Archive B was its official name, but everyone just called it the crypt. A windowless, concrete-walled sub-basement 2 floors below ground, with a heavy steel door that locked from the outside. Only used for old cases, her supervisor, Claire, had told her. Stuff nobody touches unless there's a legal audit or a resurrection order. The lighting was dim. The air was damp. The rows of metal shelves stretched far into the darkness like a labyrinth of forgotten crimes. It always smelled like mildew and rust. Jasmine hated going down there, but that Friday night, Claire had left early, and someone needed to pull an archive deposition from 1993. So Jasmine grabbed her access card and key, muttered a prayer under her breath, and descended the stairs. The lights flickered on barely when she opened the vault-like door. She walked past rows of bankers' boxes, listening to the echo of her own footsteps. Some of the boxes had handwritten labels. Others were stained, crumbling at the corners. Cobwebs clung to the ceiling supports like forgotten threads of history. She found the 1993 to 1994 section and began her search. As she crouched down to check a lower shelf, she heard it. A voice, not loud, not sharp, just soft, almost conversational. It sounded like someone whispering from the next row over. She stood up, heart racing, and called out, "Hello!" No response. She slowly moved toward the next row, heels clicking on the cold floor. Empty. Then, behind her, "Why are you here?" Jasmine spun around. No one. Just aisle after aisle of silence. "Claire?" she called, hoping maybe her boss had returned. No answer. She backed up against the shelves, holding her phone out like a shield. But there was no signal. There never was down here. That's when she noticed something strange. The lights above aisle 3, the far corner, were off. Dead. Pitch black. But they had been on when she walked in. She was sure of it. She squinted toward the darkness, then decided. She was done. She'd come back for the file on Monday. Jasmine turned to leave, but the door at the far end of the archive was open. It wasn't supposed to be. There was only one entrance, the steel door she had locked behind her. But now there was another, a door she'd never seen before, nestled between 2 cabinets, half covered in shadow, with a rusted frame and no markings. And she swore it hadn't been there before. Just inside that doorway, there was movement, a flicker, like a silhouette swaying slightly back and forth. She stepped closer irrationally, like someone watching a train wreck. Heart pounding, pulse hammering in her ears. The shadow shifted and whispered again, but this time closer, right behind her ear. "Go back upstairs." Jasmine screamed and stumbled forward, turning to see who had spoken. No one. When she turned back, the rusted door was gone. The wall was solid, concrete, seamless. as if it had never existed. Jasmine ran, not caring about the file, not even shutting off the lights. She burst through the steel exit and didn't stop until she was back on the main floor, gasping and sweating. Claire didn't believe her. No one did. The partners told her she was probably just exhausted or had a panic attack. But Jasmine knew what she saw. Still, she returned to work on Monday because rent was rent. She avoided the archive basement for a few weeks, until a new hire named Doug was told to retrieve a case file from 1992. He went down with his headphones on and never came back. They found him hours later, sitting in the pitch-dark corner of the archive. No injuries.
No trauma.
Just staring, muttering to himself. He couldn't remember his name. He couldn't remember what year it was, but he kept repeating one sentence over and over in a low, mechanical voice. There's another room. They never closed the other room. HR said Doug had a breakdown, transferred him out quietly, paid him to stay quiet. But Jasmine knew the truth. She started digging through the firm's oldest records and found something buried under boxes of obsolete case law. A file labeled simply, Door B, Do Not Reopen. Inside were black and white photographs of a bricked-off basement passageway and transcripts of interviews with clerks from 1978. Each one claimed to hear voices in the walls. One swore she saw a man in a suit, standing silently behind a false door, watching her. The file ended with a sealed memo. Door B is not a structural feature. It should not exist. We believe this may be a residual haunting or an architectural anomaly.
Recommand permanent closure.
No further exploration authorized. Jasmine transferred departments 6 months later. She never returned to that basement. But sometimes, when she's working late and walking past the elevator, she hears a soft chime, the down button, flickering on by itself, and a voice, faint but distinct, whispering up the shaft. You shouldn't have seen that. If you ever work late, and you hear voices in a place no voice should be, don't answer, don't investigate, and above all, don't follow the sound. Because if you find the door that isn't supposed to be there, it may find you first. Hospitals are never really quiet. Even at 3 a.m., something's always humming, beeping, or buzzing. Maybe it's the machines. Maybe it's the vents. Maybe it's the grief soaked into every hallway. Brandon worked night security at a regional hospital in Ohio. Not the ER, not the psych wing, just the administrative side. It wasn't glamorous. Mostly badge checks, checking empty stairwells, and walking the same silent halls for 8 hours a night. His only real job, he joked, was making sure no one ghosts through the wrong door. He said that once. Only once. Because one night, that's exactly what happened. It started like any other shift. 11 p.m., clock in, check the log, walk the first round. Nothing strange. A few nurses waved. The lights buzzed overhead in that tired, flickering way they always did. Around 2:15 a.m., Brandon was stationed near the south stairwell, watching the hallway monitors. Nothing ever happened in that wing, mostly offices and a few locked med rooms. That's when he saw it. On the second floor camera, a man walking past the blood lab. Blue scrubs.
Nos shoes.
No ID badge. Just moving slowly, like he was in a daze. Brandon leaned closer. Ha! He muttered. Wrong wing, buddy. He radioed the front desk. Hey, we got someone wandering up on 2. Reception answered. All patients accounted for, and there's no scheduled staff up there right now. Brandon frowned. Well, someone's definitely up there. Want me to call it in? Nah, I got it, Brandon replied. Probably just a lost patient. He took the stairs 2 at a time and stepped onto the second floor. Empty. 2 empty. The hallway lights buzzed above, dim and flickering like they hadn't been changed in years. The air was heavy. Brandon walked past the blood lab and turned the corner. No one. But then, a door down the hallway creaked open. He turned toward it just in time to see a figure slip through, into the restricted storage room. The same one that required a keycard. Brandon's hand went to his belt. Only 2 people had access to that room. He was one of them, and the other was the chief of surgery, who was out of state for a conference. Brandon approached the door and called out, "Sir? You're not supposed to be in there." No answer, just the echo of his own voice. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. Dark. No light, just the faint hum of freezers and the low, constant whir of a fan. Then something moved. In the corner, a man, facing the wall, barefoot, standing perfectly still. Brandon froze. He didn't move closer, just reached for his flashlight and kept his hand on his radio. "Sir, can you hear me?" The man didn't respond, didn't turn, didn't even breathe. Brandon said it again, louder this time, and the man finally spoke. 3 words, "You're not real." Then he turned around, and Brandon's body locked up. The man's face was pale, eyes gray, lips cracked. But what stopped Brandon cold wasn't the man himself. It was his ID badge, hanging crooked from a bloody lanyard. The name read, Dr. Joseph J. Monroe. Brandon's stomach dropped, because he knew that name. Dr. Monroe had died 4 years ago in that very same room. An accident during a late-night operation. Cardiac arrest. No foul play, or so the hospital claimed. Brandon stumbled backward, heart hammering, and turned to flee. But the door had shut behind him, and the lock clicked. No matter how hard he pushed, it wouldn't budge. He turned back, and the man was gone. The room was empty. Brandon pounded the door, called into his radio, screamed for backup. Nothing, just static. Then, something behind him whispered, "I never clocked out." The voice was right in his ear. He turned, but no one was there. When maintenance finally opened the door 23 minutes later, Brandon was sitting on the floor, shaking, pale as chalk. They wrote it up as a panic attack. The footage, corrupted. Security logs, missing entries from 2:12 to 2:37 a.m. Later that week, Brandon searched for records on Dr. Monroe. Found nothing about a heart attack, but he did find a settlement payment issued to Monroe's family and a sealed investigation file titled Employee Misconduct/Forced Overtime Dispute. The doctor had been forced to work over 90 hours that week. No food, no sleep. His death wasn't natural. It was negligence. And maybe that's why he still walks those halls, still in uniform, still trying to finish the shift that killed him. Brandon quit 2 days later, but sometimes he still dreams of that hallway, the flickering lights, the smell of antiseptic, the echo of bare feet behind him, and the sound of a badge being clipped onto a shirt that no longer exists. If you work nights in a hospital and you see someone in scrubs with no shoes and no ID, don't follow them. Don't ask questions. Don't open doors that should be locked. Because not everyone wandering the halls is alive. Some are just stuck, waiting for someone to see them, someone to let them finish what they started. Most buildings die quietly. The lights go out, the doors lock, the air gets still, and the world forgets they were ever full of life. But sometimes, places don't want to be forgotten, and neither do the people who never got to leave. Gavin was a contract maintenance tech. Not the kind with a tool belt and a name tag, the kind who got called when corporate wanted a job done quietly. Deep system inspections, server resets, time clock audits. He didn't ask questions. Not until he was sent to East Haven Distribution Center, a warehouse facility that had been permanently shut down in 2013 after a multi-company buyout. His job? Investigate strange activity on the facility's timekeeping system, which had recently been reconnected to the company server. Despite no one working there for over a decade, it sounded like a glitch, but Gavin got curious when he saw the support ticket. Submitted by unknown_user 37 timestamp, 4:12 a.m. logged from East Haven Internal Terminal 04. There shouldn't have been any active terminals, and the building didn't even have power anymore. Supposedly, but something or someone was still punching in. The building sat on the edge of a forest, gray and collapsing, surrounded by rusted fencing and cracked pavement. Its windows were covered in years of grime, and the air smelled like old rain and motor oil. Gavin found the service entrance already unlocked. Inside, cold silence. His boots echoed against the concrete. The power was barely alive, just enough juice for emergency lights and, apparently, the timekeeping terminals. He followed the hallway past dusty lockers and overturned carts until he found the time clock wall. There were 6 terminals. One of them was on. Terminal 04. Screen glowing, cursor blinking, and a name displayed in white letters. Logged IN, Ellis, Marlene shift start, 3:55 a.m. status. In progress, Gavin blinked. He checked the power supply, running off a single backup battery that should have died years ago. He tapped the terminal. Unresponsive. Then he opened the employee logs and ran a lookup. Marlene Ellis, floor manager, died on site in 2012. Fell from a mezzanine while trying to fix a conveyor jam. Tragic accident. Company settled with her family quietly. Gavin stared at the screen, unease crawling up his spine. Why would her login reactivate? Who restored this power line? He checked the hallway cameras from the old system access point. Footage was corrupted, except for one clip. From 3:55 a.m. It showed a woman in a high-vis vest, hair in a bun, walking down the south hall and vanishing past the fire doors. No face, no ID, just static. Gavin backed away from the monitor and turned to leave. That's when he heard it. A time punch chime. Ding! He spun around. Another terminal had turned on. Terminal 03 logged IN. Fisher, Calvin shift start, 4:01 a.m. Status. In progress, Calvin Fisher, forklift driver, deceased, crushed between a loading ramp and truck bay wall. Same year, same facility, same floor. Now 2 dead employees had just clocked in. Gavin's skin crawled. He began pulling backup data from the central drive, trying to gather enough evidence to justify a full system shutdown. As he downloaded the log files, the lights above him flickered. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Coming from the hall. He killed the terminal light and ducked behind the server rack, holding his breath. The steps got louder. Closer. He peeked through a gap in the cables and saw a man in a dusty safety vest, dragging a bent clipboard down the hall. His head tilted at an unnatural angle. His jaw hanging open. Eyes gone. Just black sockets staring ahead. The man paused outside the server room. Then ding. Another terminal activated. Terminal 05 logged IN. Hansen, Diane shift start, 4:06 a.m. Status. In progress. Gavin couldn't take it anymore. He ran. Through the hallway, past the locker rooms, into the old assembly line corridor. That's when he saw them. Shadows. Moving. Figures in hard hats. Aprons. Dust-covered uniforms. Clocking in. Pushing carts that no longer existed. Operating machines that had long since rusted. Each one repeating the same motion. Over and over. Locked in some endless work cycle. Their faces were blurred, smeared like bad photographs. And every few seconds, Gavin would hear ding, ding, ding. The time clocks activating by themselves. All of them. He made it to the exit. Yanked open the rusted door and spilled into the morning fog, heart racing. He didn't stop running until he reached the car. As he drove off, the building lights flickered behind him one final time, like the place was watching him leave. The next day, Gavin tried to report the incident. No one believed him. He uploaded the video logs to a flash drive. Gone. Wiped. Corrupted. But the worst part? A week later, he got a system notification on his company device. A new time punch had come in. From East Haven. Logged in. Gavin Reed shift start. 3:48 a.m. Status. In progress. He hadn't gone back. He never clocked in. But according to the system, he's still there. Still working. Still walking those halls. Sometimes, Gavin lies awake at night and swears he hears the ding of a terminal. And once, just once, he swore he saw his own face on a hospital security monitor, wearing that same uniform, carrying that same bag, walking the halls of a place that's been dead for years. Places remember, and sometimes they hold on. So if you ever get sent to inspect an abandoned building and a time clock is still running, don't touch it, don't try to fix it, and above all, don't clock in. Because once your name appears on that screen, you may never get it back.